gentlemen, this time I'd like to welcome up the president of Fred Astaire Dance Studios, Mr. Jack Rothweiler.
Thank you, Ted. I hope everyone enjoyed this week as much as I did. It was fantastic in every sense of the word. From my standpoint, and everybody I talked to had the same feeling. For all the people that put it together, you heard their names last night. A big round of applause from the dance board, to the support people, to the music people. Congratulations. A big round of applause for everybody from that standpoint. And from us, the Fred Astaire organization, the teachers, the owners, and so forth, if we could give all the people who made this event successful, which are you guys, the people who are up there competing, your friends, your family, can we give you guys a big round of applause? Thank you very much. You actually made history. 13,000 entries and 110 degrees outside. And you still came, and you still did it, it's still good. I'm not going to talk too much about the name that I love. Everybody knows, Fred Astaire has always represented something to me that was magical. It kept me in this business for forever. Earlier this year, I was thinking about it. Something came into my mind. I said, geez, look, maybe one of the last real pictures that I saw of him live, I went back in my memory and everything else. It was really back in 1958, 59, so on and so forth, when he really had the, if you can recall, he had the Fred Astaire special on TV. For those that were back in those days. Am I the only one? Maybe. And I got thinking about that. I said, geez, let me just see something. And I made a phone call to see whether everything was still the way that I thought it was back then. One thing led to another. I went out to visit this woman who I saw dancing. We sat down without knowing each other, and we talked probably for about 4.5 hours, and we both looked at each other, and we said, do you realize that we're both strangers and we're sitting here talking for 4.5 hours without a break? If you can please have your attention to the screen, ladies and gentlemen.
Barrie Chase was born on October 20th, 1933, in New York City. When she was 6, her father, Gordon Chase, moved the family from New York to California so he could start his screenwriting career. She is known for her work on Cape Fear in 1962, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World in 1963, and The Flight of the Phoenix in 1965. It was while working with Jack Cole's assistant choreographer at MGM that Fred Astaire asked her to be his dancing partner on An Evening with Fred Astaire. She made 4 television appearances as Astaire's partner in the television specials between 1958 and 1968. The two danced on Hollywood Palace in 1966. She has been quoted saying, dancing with Fred Astaire and not learning anything from him would be the same as working with Michelangelo and saying you're becoming pretty good as a stone chiseler. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Miss Barrie Chase.
How about that?
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming.
Esquire. Okay.
Is that Esquire magazine?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, well, you would dance with Fred Astaire for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
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 And during that time, what was it like just working with him and in the creative process and kind of
Wouldn't it be
speak to
funny
his
if I just said it was terrible? course, it's very high. This
This
is very
too
low.
high?
It's sort of weird.
You want to get rid of it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get rid of it.
Okay. Thank you. What was it like? Yeah, of course, the best you could ever imagine. Everyone knows that. Difficult, everybody knows that. Learn a hell of a lot, hopefully. The best atmosphere of rehearsal that I've ever been in, and I started working when I was 16. So
You lied about your age?
I'm 80.
No, you said you were 16, but you had to be 18 to work.
Oh, I did lie. Yeah, no. So my mother wouldn't be on the set. Yeah, I did. Yeah, they said, girl next to me when we were filling out the form, she said, don't give them your real age. You won't get the job because they'll have to have your mother. So I lied. Yeah. Okay.
Moving right along.
Moved right along.
All right. Now, how did you, just the process of doing this?
How did I meet him?
Yeah.
I was working for a choreographer called Jack Cole. Any of you out there know that name? Pity. You all probably know Bob Fosse, though, right? Yeah. Okay. Look up Jack Cole in your little machines, and there would not. And you know Gwen Verdon, yes? Yeah. Okay. Gwen Verdon was Jack Cole's protege. And she became his assistant. She's an immensely talented, wonderful dancer who became Bob's wife. And Bobby was a hoofer before that. You can see him in Kiss Me Kate. And the combination of Gwen, who was Jack Cole, and Bobby turned out to be jazz. And there would be no Bobby without Jack Cole. Anyway, that's the choreographer I was working. And it makes me upset that people don't know about him. The weird thing came in my head. It's like some great composer and you don't know about him, and all these things were built upon that person. But anyway, I was working for him and trying to learn his style of dance, and Fred was doing silk stockings next door at MGM on the other rehearsal hall. We had a drummer, which was very unusual in rehearsal. And Fred popped in to see what was going on. And I was there with 4 of the boys who were Jack Cole dancers who knew what they were doing, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I stood out. Anyway, he asked Jack if I would, if he would release me to do the Commissar number. I danced with Fred in silk stockings. We'll dance the Commissars. That was the beginning of the whole deal. I got lucky.
You did. So being humble, what happened, the story she was telling me is also, he stuck his head in 2 or 3 times and picked you out, which is amazing.
Well, I was the only girl. It was not too hard.
Now what happened? Now what happened with the ABC special when you went to do that, and you weren't sure what part you had?
Oh well, yeah. He said to me over dinner one night that NBC had been asking him to do a show, and he didn't know what to do, and he turned them down a lot. And we had gone to see the Moiseyev dancers. They were the first time they came around, and he got an idea to do an all-dance show. You know, in those days, you used to have a singer and a comic, and hodgepodge show. And so he said he was going to do the show, and he asked if I would like to be on it, and I went, yeah, I think so. And I was under contract at Fox at the time. And I said, I don't know if they'll let me do it. And he said, yeah, they'll let you do it. Anyway, he called me into rehearsal, and it was Hermes Pan, who was the choreographer, and Fred and myself. And we're noodling around for 2 weeks, and I thought I was going to be the assistant. And we got into, then they called in all the kids. And it dawned on me, there was no principal. I was it. Nobody said you're going to be his partner. Nobody said anything like, I'd probably run to the hills or something. But and I kept thinking, because Ginger Rogers had a special 1 week before Fred's, she put it on. And I kept saying, everybody's going to say, why didn't he dance with Ginger? Which is a normal question. I asked it myself. And So I was really scared that it was going to be a colossal fiasco. But I was very fortunate. Everybody seemed very kind, very, very kind.
That's awesome. Now, what were the rehearsals like? Did you practice, every day or half a day?
Oh God, what is rehearsal like? It's a lot of work.
Well, how many hours did you put in?
You work till you drop, right? And then you keep on working. So, yeah, if you want to be good, that's what you do. You give it more than what you've got to give.
That's right. Now, you were a ballet dancer, correct?
I was, trained in, I do not know the technique or the basics or your terminology of ballroom. I learned it, but I never studied it. I strictly studied ballet. I never studied tap, and I danced with Fred. It's weird, isn't it? But Sid was the same way. She didn't know tap either. But beautiful dancer, Sid Trees. Anyway, I was trained for ballet and was supposed to go into a Balanchine's company, and then my parents divorced and life went crazy. And I went to work in films. I spent quite a few years in the chorus, and then I became an assistant, and then I gave it up because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I didn't get the opportunity. I was having dinner with a fellow I was going out with who became very famous. His name was Stanley Kubrick. And he asked me, was I happy with what I was doing? And I said no, because I can't get anywhere. I'm back. I get a little something and it seems good, and I'm back in the chorus, and I get a little something and I'm back in the chorus because I have to pay the rent. And he said, well, there's one way to get out of the chorus. And I said, oh my God, what? He said, don't do it. And I said, well, that's good, but how do I live? He said, you'll manage. You'll be okay. He said, I'll get you an interview with the best acting coach, Jeff Corey. He said, I don't know if he'll take you, but go and talk to him. And he did take me, and I stopped dancing for 1 year before I didn't bend over. I gave it up. I put music on at home and dance. Can't help do that, Good music, you gotta move. But, so I hadn't really danced for a year before the Astaire special. I'd thrown in my hat. So anyway, long answer.
That's what we want. Fred Astaire was asked many, many years ago who his favorite partner was. And he publicly said Gene Kelly, right? Because he didn't want to upset
all those ladies.
And then some years later, he said it was Barrie Chase. And she said, well, how come you didn't say that before?
Right.
So this was his favorite dance partner.
Well, I like Rita Hayworth myself. I thought she was great. I loved Rita Hayworth. There's something special about her.
You told me another I thought it was a quirky, funny story. What a lot of us are curious about is the character of Fred Astaire, what he was like, and you were there, that kind of thing. And so you said you'd have rehearsals, and he would invite you back sometimes, and you'd go have a drink, and you'd have dinner. Remember you talked about that? Let's hear. This is pretty funny.
Well, I told you a couple of things. One, we were talking food, and I said, in rehearsal, I never had lunch. I would just pass out probably at lunchtime. But he always had a bowl of broth every day, the same bowl of broth, which he always offered to me, and I didn't take it, no. But he was. And then after work, I was always invited up to the house to have a drink, which was really to discuss what we were going to do, what we had done, and what we were going to do. So, and he'd always put out this little bowl of nuts, a couple of little macadamia nuts, like 3 or 4. I'd gobble them up like all dancers do, right? And he'd put out 3 or 4 more nuts, I'd say, what's with the 3 or 4 nuts all the time? He said, well, you know, macadamians are very expensive. But then the housekeeper would come in and tell him that dinner was served, and I'd be dismissed, and I'd go to the local deli. There was no ready food in those days that you could pick up, you know. Yeah, and then start the next day. But I was really, really, really lucky, and I knew that, to be working with such an incredible, talented, magical person. And I think that's interesting that tonight is magic, you know. For Fred was truly magic.
Well, thank you very much. We're so glad you're here. Ladies and gentlemen, David Chase.
And ladies and gentlemen, Miss Barrie Chase.